इसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है इसमें ये जो लगा रहा है आवाज नहीं आ रही आपको आवाज नहीं आ रहा ग्रीन हाँ ये वाला मैडम अरे बताइए could you hear me
yes sir
but your voice is not coming just 1 second फुल है ना हाँ मैडम सुनाई दे रहा है
yes sir
yes now it is okay fine wonderful thank you okay so we are having 1 minute more then thereafter we'll be starting okay in
sure,
the meantime in the meantime we got some participant already okay because that first speaker who was supposed to talk he is having some sudden program engagement in his own department so that's why I have requested you so
no
he'll
problem,
be joining
sir. No issue.
Thank you
Actually, however, I prepared my lecture in a way that I will be concluding, mine will be the last lecture, but it is fine.
but it is in the last day last day first
Yeah.
बहुत ज्यादा पानी हो गया ऐसा कम नहीं कर सकते हो यहाँ पे इसको यहाँ पे रखें
Good morning, Dr. Himanshu. Sir, you are not audible. You have muted yourself.
Okay. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Mandal Saab. How are you?
Dr. Seta madam, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, sir.
So nice of you, Dr. Mandal.
Thank
Good to see you. So you are sitting in your office, it seems, Dr. Mandal.
Sir.
Okay. So nice. Okay, madam, we should start now.
I think yes, sir.
Yes. So, okay, that Konika can start with the welcome. Then thereafter, madam, you please do the recapitulation.
Sure, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome all for the last day of this online training program. For today, there is a slight change in the schedule. Today, at first, Dr. Shweta Yadav will be delivering her lecture. Afterwards, Dr. Raju will be joining, and afterwards, valedictory session will be done by Professor Russell Singh on behalf of Professor B.S.
Kunika, I think there is some issue at your end. I think Konika is facing some issues. So as she mentioned that there is a slight change in the schedule, my lecture will be the first. I am Shweta Yadav. I am convener collaboration and community R&D cell Central University of Jammu and also faculty in the Department of Environmental Sciences. So before we start today's session, I would like to summarize about yesterday's proceedings. So I welcome once again all of you to this 3 days online training program in collaboration with NIDM. And yesterday, so Konika, I have already started. Thank you so much. So yesterday, We were having 3 lectures. Our technical session yesterday started with a lecture from Mr. Anil Kathet, who is Technical Officer, Emergency Management, VHS CDC India. He talked about understanding the behavior of fragile slopes and their management. He gave a detailed, beneficial overview of the landslide prone areas in detail. And he also briefed about the direct as well as indirect impacts of landslides. He talked about occurrence of quite many examples he gave, like Mandi in Himachal Pradesh and all. And he also showed the participants number of initiatives and interventions which have contributed for landslide risk reduction and resilience, because basically the program, this program is having focus on disaster risk reduction. So followed by was the second lecture from Professor Sunil Thar, who is head Department of Environmental Sciences. He talked on GLOF, potential threat on the Himalayas. He started by introducing cryosphere and importance of Himalayan glaciers, and he shared his work on glaciers. He showed the development of glacier snout in comparison of its positions in recent past. He also showed some unexpected findings of his study, one of which is that Jammu region owns more glaciers than that by Kashmir. So his lecture was quite useful for the participants. And then we had third lecture by our coordinator, Dr. A.L. Halder, who is also consultant and NIDM. He talked on GIS in DRR. He said the internet combined with technology such as geographic information system now makes it possible to better understand and communicate the social and physical complexities of the disasters. So he also talked about disaster maps can be prepared to show the risk zones as well as disaster impact zone. And GIS can provide useful information to boost disaster awareness with government and the public, he added. He also showed some examples like how, if anybody is doing any kind of research, how remote sensing and GIS tools can be specifically useful for that studies. And we had a record of 223 number of participants from all over India yesterday. So with this, I finished the summarization of yesterday's technical sessions, and over to you, Konika, for initiating today's technical session. Thank you.
I think Konika might have some problem. That's why
yeah.
it is.
Yes, sir. I was having
So
some
please.
network problem. Am I audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry for the network glitch. So for today's session, I would like to welcome, first of all, Dr. Shweta Yadav. She is a very vibrant atmospheric scientist working in the fragile and least studied eco-sensitive Himalayan region. She is PhD from JNU and a recipient of prestigious Fulbright Climate Fellowship for postdoctoral research. She is presently working as faculty in Central University of Jammu, and she has been a visitor to North Carolina State University, USA. She has been working in the field of ambient aerosols for last 15 years and possesses excellent hands-on experience on instrumentation and analytical techniques. Dr. Yadav started working on ice nucleating particle properties of aerosols during her postdoctorate at North Carolina State University, and her research group is presently partnering with colleagues from NCSU for setting up a facility for offline measurements of INPs present in aerosol and precipitation samples in CU Jammu. Dr. Yadav is a nodal faculty for J&K under National Clean Air Program. She is coordinator of the Himalayan Aerosol Research Instrumentation Facility, which is a dedicated instrumentation facility established in CU Jammu campus in collaboration of J&K Pollution Control Board for conducting source apportionment studies. Ma'am, I welcome you to please deliver this first talk of the day.
Thank you, Konika, for the introduction, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Halder for making this happen and this program and giving me opportunity for this lecture. I also welcome, I can see my colleague, Dr. Dinesh, who is also faculty in EVS. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Himanshu, who is there, scientist MOES, who is there with us for this training program. So with this, I would like to share my slides. Let me see if it is possible. So can you see my slides?
Yes, madam. Yes, it is coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I'm going to talk about climate disasters in the Himalayas. And so basically our research group, as Konika just summarized, that we specialize in aerosols, air quality and climate change. And amid all this, we are focusing more on ice nucleating particle measurements, bioaerosol climate and health perspective, non-polar and polar organic source tracers, and source apportionment of aerosols. As Dr. Himanshu is here, I would like to mention that we have recently got a Indo-Swiss grant to have some measurements in Patnitop in the Himalayan region. So it is a Swiss MOES grant, and we look forward for execution of this in this field only. So coming to today's lecture, I'm going to focus on climatic disasters. And when we talk of climate, the first thing comes is the climate change crisis. So as we have in our participants, some of the MSc students also. So I want to specify here that whenever we are saying climate change, we refer to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. So weather is like day-to-day shift, and climate is a long-term. Generally, we take a 30-year period. So these shifts may be natural, such as through variations in the solar cycle. But why we are concerned for climate change? Because climate change is actually now anthropogenic driven. So, but since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver of climate change, and primarily due to burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, we see a rise in temperature. So the Earth is now about 1.1 degrees Celsius warmer than it was in the late 1800s. And this is a main focus. So you can connect that whenever we are talking of climate change, we are talking of increase in global Earth's temperature. And we are having some landmarks, and we are trying to have those landmarks achieved. So the last decade was 2011, 2020 was the warmest on record. So whatever numbers I'm showing here, it is from IPCC and UN reports. So climate change, when we say now it has come to the code red for humanity. So in 2021, the UN Secretary General said the working group's report was nothing less than a code red for humanity. Why? Because the alarm bells are deafening on climate change and the evidence is irrefutable. We are at imminent risk of hitting 1.5 degrees in the near term. As I just mentioned, that whenever we are talking of climate change, we are worried about the rising temperature. So the only way to prevent exceeding this threshold is by urgently stepping up our efforts and pursuing the most ambitious path to attain the goals which are set globally as well as locally for climate. So we must act decisively now to keep the 1.5 mark alive. In September 2022, recently, so this was September 2021 when UN Secretary General said that this is code red for humanity and 1.5 degrees is at risk. And now recently in September 2022, he said that 1.5 degree climate pledge is on life support. That means the risk is increasing. We are not able to tackle it. And the efforts to keep the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels is on life support. So more action and leadership is required to tackle the climate crisis. Now coming to climate disasters. So whenever we are saying climate disasters, we specify that the expected value of losses often represented as the likelihood of occurrence of hazardous events multiplied by the impact. So when we are saying impacts on lives, livelihoods, health, ecosystem, economies, societies, culture, services, and infrastructure if these events occur. So this is how we define climate-related disaster risk. And disaster risks results from the interaction of three elements basically. First, the hazard itself. So any hazard is coming, it is a risk in itself. Then second, the population exposed to the hazard, the exposure level. Suppose if we are having a sea level rise or if we are having flooding, that the low-lying areas, the population living in the low-lying areas are more exposed to the hazard. So this is our second criteria to measure the disaster risk. And the third is the community's ability to withstand its impact, that is vulnerability. This is the most important because this is where we can work to have a resilient India tomorrow. At global level also we need to work so that we are prepared for any disaster before it comes. Impact of climatic disasters, when we say, as climate change continues, it will likely lead to more frequent and severe natural hazards. The impact will be heavy, and the climate change causes poverty and food shortages and forces even higher numbers of men, women, and children to flee from their homes. So, on an average, 26 million people are displaced by disasters such as floods and storms every year as of 2016, and that's one person forced to flee every second. So, this is a data shown by Norwegian Refugee Council. And this is a picture which I generally show on in my lectures when I am talking about disasters. So you can see here how the climate thing has been shown, the flood is there, and then how the manpower is getting affected because of the climate related disasters. So now global increase in climate related disasters like floods, storms, as well as droughts and heat waves have been on the rise worldwide. The IPCC report says that the disaster risk framework sets out 3 linkages involving climate related disasters. So initially we talk of the factors, now we are talking of the linkages. The first is the greenhouse gas emissions alter atmospheric GHG concentrations and thus affect climate variables, specifically temperature and precipitation. Because whenever we are talking of the disaster risk framework, particularly the climate related disaster, the first factor comes as the increasing greenhouse gas emissions because it alters the temperature. Second is the change in the climate variables that affect the frequency of climate related hazards. And third is the frequency of climate related hazards that affect the risk of natural disasters. So these are the 3 important components or linkages of the disaster risk framework. So what is the pertinent question today we are having? Is there an ominous link between global increase in hydrometeorological and climatological events and anthropogenic climate change or not? Because there are many times this controversy comes up that if any disaster or any hazard is happening, is it solely because of the climate thing? Is it solely because of hydrometeorological thing? So this still remains a question and this still remains a controversy, and the answer to this controversy can only be given by more research, more data, and more preparedness towards the disasters. So further exploring the climate disaster link, climate change is of course not a necessary or a sufficient condition for disasters to occur, but the mechanisms that link climate change and natural hazards cannot be held solely responsible for long-term trends in disaster losses adjusted for increases in wealth and population. But this is for sure that the association between climate change and the loss of lives and damages due to natural disasters is another point of scientific controversy. So 3 main disaster risk factors, as I just discussed, behind the increasing frequency of intense climate-related natural disasters are: first, the rising population exposure; second, greater population vulnerability; third, increasing climate-related hazards. So this is the global frequency of natural disasters by type from 1970 to 2014. So whenever we look at any graph, we first focus on the, let me take my laser pointer. So we first see at the x-axis what are the numbers, and we see what is there at the y-axis. So at x-axis, you see here the year, and here you see the frequency, right? So here you can clearly see that how different types of disasters are increasing. Here with the blue line, you see hydrological disasters. With the red line or orangish line, you see meteorological. Green shows climatological, and the black shows geophysical. So if we compare all 4, we see here a rise more, at least till 2014 the data is there, more on the side of meteorological and hydrological, and sometimes even the meteorological overlap with the climatological. So this is the Indian Himalayan region. This figure has been taken from a very, very informative paper by Dimri et al. 2021, which is published in Current Science. So whosoever is interested in disasters or climate studies in the Himalayan region must see the publications from Professor A.P. Dimri, who is our teacher from JNU, and he is doing really very good work in this field. So this is just for the knowledge of those participants who are not aware of the Indian Himalayan region. Here you can see that different states are there, and different, now Jammu and Kashmir has become UT. So we have in Indian Himalayan region JNK, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Arunachal Pradesh, and yeah, we have some central Himalayas, and here you can see the summary of 164 glaciological, geodetic, and modeling estimates of rates of glacier mass change by glacier region. So I will not be getting into the details because yesterday also we heard a lecture from Professor Dhir, who was focusing on Govt studies in the Himalayan region. But this is just to show to you that how Himalayan region is prone to types of disasters we are facing. So this is the overview of major flood, lake outburst and mass movements across Jammu, Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. And event locations are based on a review of published literature solely. So there may be more data. And there is one of the, I will be talking about this thing. So there is one more, limitation in the Indian Himalayan region, that whenever some climate related disaster or any other disaster is happening, sometimes it happens in uninhabited regions, so where nobody lives. So when it happens over there, we only get to know when it is, striking us. So this is one of the limitations why we are not able to understand the disasters in the Indian Himalayan region very well. What makes the Himalayas prone to disasters? This is very basic thing everyone knows, but still we need to remember that the Himalayan orography with its steep and unstable inclines forms a perfect platform for such a cloudburst event to lead to flash floods or landslides. So predicting the location, amplitude and magnitude of such catastrophic events in advance remains a challenge. So basically, I'm trying to focus over here that why in Indian Himalayan region, because yesterday, if you heard Mr. Anil's lecture also, he was talking about the landslides in the Himachal Pradesh region and all. So why it is so that the Himalayan region is so prone to disasters? It is basically because of its orography with its steep and unstable inclines. So these are some of the cloudburst events in the Himalayas, which is published in another publication by Professor Dimri et al. 2017. So this picture shows the events in the Himalayas. And you can see here, this is the elevation graph. So basically, I cannot cover in my, given slot all the disasters happening in the Himalayan region, but I'm just picking one example of cloudburst. So the principal understanding of the cloudburst is associated with sudden heavy deluge of precipitation in very less time interval over a very small area. This is how we say cloudburst has happened. That means a very heavy precipitation is happening over a small area in a very less time interval. So IMD defines cloudburst as if greater than 100 mm per hour precipitation over a geographical region of approximately 20 to 30 kilometers square is happening, then we call it a cloudburst. So most of these events are reported once their effect in terms of loss to life and properties experienced in the downstream habitat. So I just mentioned that in the Himalayan region, what is happening, that we are not able to get to know about the disasters because there are some places in the Indian Himalayan region where nobody lives. So we get to know when we experience the loss in the downstream habitats. So in addition, they are mostly associated with flash floods as an impact of torrential precipitation. So there are now, when we try understanding any climatic disaster, suppose cloudburst, we try connecting it with different types of forcings. So when we say cloudburst and orographic forcings, so it means that how the large scale orographic interactions are proposed by various authors. There are some examples, like Barros et al. Says that the spatial scale forcing ranging from few kilometer to continental scale and time scale for onset and intra-seasonal variability of Indian summer monsoon is responsible. Another author says that along the western Himalayan region, smaller but highly convective systems are there. Another author says that dynamical forcing associated with the upslope induced and near surface horizontal velocity convergence induced vertical motion takes place, and that leads to, cloudburst. And one more study is there which says that the Tibetan complex terrain leads to dynamic blocking which enhances stronger water vapor convergence in northwest Sichuan region and thus intensifying the local severe storm. So from this slide, I want to convey to the participants that whenever any type of climate disaster is happening, there are different types of factors which are affecting. So in this slide, we are saying that cloudburst is getting affected by the orographic forcings, and different studies are having different school of thoughts to, say that, okay, this is the reason and this is the reason for the cloudburst. Another is cloudburst and geomorphology. So bulk of the cloudburst related gradational phenomena in the Western Himalayas are observed between 1000 to 2500 meter topographic range. So again, this tells us that, okay, this is the geomorphology which is more prone to cloudburst or any other kind of disaster. Some exceptions are there, like greater than 3000 meter on 6 August 2010, Leh cloudburst in the cold desert of Ladakh happened. So obviously there will be some exceptions to all the things, but yes, this is the criteria. So confirmed and debated 2013 cloudburst over the Uttarakhand region in Garhwal Himalaya is another example. So here are some conceptual diagrams. So you need not to get into the details. If you want to understand the details, you can go to this publication called Dimri et al. 2017. But here you just need to understand that how different authors, different studies are telling different mechanisms which are leading to cloudburst. Here you can see that this study says that low level moist flow is there in the Himalayan region. Dry air is coming from this side. We have dry northwesterly also coming, and this all leads to the triggering mechanism. Another author says that, okay, I think this picture is not very clear to my participants. I'm sorry for that. But generally it is showing this green part. It is showing the increasing temperature over the Indian subcontinent. And then it is leading, the air is going from here and it is leading to cloud formation and then the divergence. This says that again the moist air parcel is going and there is a funnel kind of structure is happening, forming in the region, which is leading to cloudbursts. And this is another mechanism over the southern rim of the Indian Himalayas, which is proposed by Chaudhary et al. 2015. So it is saying that, okay, convectional currents are also active, the movement is taking place, moisture is also present, and orographic uplifting is taking place, which is leading to cloudburst. So what limits our understanding on climatic disasters in the Himalayas? We are saying, fine, a lot of disasters are happening, but still we are not, able to get ourselves prepared, or we are not having a very good understanding. The first and foremost is the climate change and related impacts over the Indian Himalayan region remains poorly quantified. Limitations in spatial and temporal data coverage and heterogeneous research methodologies have been identified as key factors leading to uncertainty. The lack of ubiquitous local weather stations coverage in the Himalayas causes limitations in quantifying the extreme precipitation versus gradation process, which is vaguely recognized as cloudburst. So I think the last thing which we are saying, that the local weather stations are not enough. I think this point can be taken care by the researchers, and we can focus like how it can increase and if it helps in recognizing the cloudbursts. So now what is the solution? Because the name of our course is disaster risk reduction, and for last 2 days, this is the third day, we have been talking about different disasters. We are talking about different kinds of hazards, and so what exactly is required to reduce. However, the speakers were telling, of course, but now when we are coming to Indian Himalayan region, so worldwide action to achieve a climate resilient sustainable world is required, and the focus on climate resilient development. I think most of you must have seen that we have recently got the 6th IPCC assessment report 2022, which says that what is the solution, and they say that climate resilient development needs to be adapted. So it's not true that we have not been talking about climate resilience, but now the need is more and the focus is required in a more urgent manner. Striving for climate resilient development in developing countries and in areas that are particularly exposed to climate change vulnerability is more. This is pretty sure, this is clear to all of us, that whenever any kind of disaster is happening, hazard is coming, the people in developing and least developed countries are more vulnerable. but each country will follow its own path, right? Importantly, each country has different capacities and opportunities for climate resilient development. But at the same time, when we are saying that each country is having its own capacities, opportunities, and each country will follow its own path, we are also emphasizing over here that international cooperation and financial assistance is very, very necessary to follow the path of climate resilient development. So when we say climate resilient development, three things come on the picture are: first is reduction in exposure and vulnerability to climate hazard. Second is reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And third is conservation of biodiversity. Whatever we are doing, whatever development we are doing, as we say, sustainable development. Sustainable development is one which is environmentally friendly, economically viable, and socially acceptable. Same way, when we are talking of climate resilient development, we need to focus on reduction in exposure and vulnerability to climate hazards, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and conservation of biodiversity. So climate resilient development involves everyone. We are saying, fine, climate resilient development is required. These are the things which we need to take care. But who will do the climate resilient development? It involves everyone. It involves all the stakeholders. So this is very important for our participants, that the prospects for effective action improve when governments at all levels work with citizens, civil society, educational bodies, and scientific institutions, media, investors, businesses, and form partnerships with traditionally marginalized groups, including women, youth, indigenous peoples, local communities, and ethnic minorities. So it is saying that everyone has to come on board, and then only we can have a path of climate resilient development. In such a societal setting, scientific, indigenous, and local knowledge and practical know-how can come together to provide more relevant, effective actions. So those who have gone through the sustainable development goals must be thinking that it is all very close to what we are talking when we are talking of sustainable development. So basically, yes. So whenever we are talking of, see, better environment, better livelihood, we are talking on the same lines. But now, when we are talking of climate resilient development, we are talking of these things, these setups, and these steps for having less climate related disasters, right? So in addition, different interests and values and worldviews can be reconciled if everyone works together. So what is the way forward? Targeting a climate resilient, sustainable world involves fundamental changes to how society functions, including changes to underlying values, worldviews, ideologies, social structures, political and economic systems, and power relationships. So concluding remarks will be: the rise in incidences of climate hazards presents the most tangible reason to confront climate change. We are already worried about the climate change. We are already working towards the climate change thing, and we are having goals for climate change to stop climate change. But the rise in incidences of climate hazards presents the most tangible reason to confront climate change. Largely, expenditure is done after a calamity has happened, after the disaster has happened. But we need to have more focus and investment there on the disaster risk reduction side. Now, like we are having this training program, 3 days training program, and NIDM is doing it with all the central universities. Why? Because they are creating awareness so that disaster does not happen. And this is the right approach which we need to follow. Community guidance / awareness on assessing environmental risks, adapting coping strategies, and developing sustainable environmental practices is very, very important. So whatever we are discussing on this platform should not be limited to the participants. Participants should make aware their neighbors, their friends, their family members, everybody, that okay, these are the take home points. We should work like this. Read more about the IPCC report, read more about the UN report, stay aware and make people aware. So the message is crystal clear. We have to raise the ambition level of mitigation. We have to raise the ambition level of awareness and our efforts for climate resilient development. With this, I am showing these references, which are really, really very helpful, because basically I don't work in the field of climate disasters. We work in the field of climate change, aerosols, and air quality. But these are some very good references if you want to read further about climate disasters, if you want to gain awareness about the climate disasters and risk reduction. Please go through these references. At the bottom, you can see my contact details. This is my email ID, shweta.evs@cujammu.ac.in, and this is my contact number where I can be reached. And please feel free to contact us. We are in Central University of Jammu. We look forward for further collaborations, and we welcome you to our laboratories in Central University of Jammu. Please visit us and please stay in touch. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. And with this, I again thank Dr. Haldar for making this happen. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Nicely elaborated regarding the climate change, that vulnerability and adaptation, how we can make it climate resilient. Beautifully you have explained, and also you are saying that during nowadays this temperature is increased, it is more than 1.5 degrees centigrade from the normal. So that is the point for thinking, and what are the things to be adopted. You have raised the problems vis-a-vis what is our duty and what is the need of the people. All the things you have given the solution. Now it is our duty, it is the public duty. We should adopt, and we should also convey these problems to everybody, to friends, surroundings, home, everywhere, so that we can make climate resilient. And also it is, you have observation is there that hydrometeorological disaster is increasing among the 4 type of disaster. Thereafter, it is following the meteorological disasters. So these are the concern of that. And especially the cloud burst is a very severe phenomenon. When and where it is going to happen, and what will be the outcome, what will be the disaster, what will be the panic, fatalities, you do not know. And for that also we have given a lot of clues that how we can make it. So very beautiful lecture is there, madam. Now let me see if some question is there or not. That
yes, definitely. And sir, thank you so much for collaborating with us for this program. And I'm very thankful to EVS faculty also. I can see Dr. Richa Kothari is there, who is Coordinator Environmental Sciences. And Dr. Anita Singh is there, Dr. Dinesh is there. So they are on board with us, and it is very motivational for all of us. So now let us look forward for the second lecture. And
madam, one question is there.
Yes,
please. That one person, that Baldev Kumar, is asked, cloud burst increase day by day, year to year. Can we control it? Any specific reason?
So, as I was just mentioning, that cloudburst is increasing, and one of the reasons why we are not able to control is that we are not having enough data. But yes, groups are working on it. And as I just mentioned, Baldevji, that there is one very good paper by Dimri et al. 2021 recently. So they have published in Current Science. So please go through that, and you will find some takeaways from there. And one of the things, if you noticed in my my presentation also, I shared that if we are having more weather stations, if we are having more data, probably we'll be able to have a less events of cloudburst. And this should be the focus actually, because see, cloudburst is totally climatic, right? So whenever we are talking of, even as I shared with you that I'm also nodal faculty for National Clean Air Program. So when we are talking of air quality, there we say that sources are in our control, but meteorology is not in our control. Same way, climate is not in our control, but the anthropogenic influence which we are leading to, the climatic fluctuations are in our control. And I think that should be the focus. And with that focus only, we are working even at Central University of Jammu. And even the Dr. Himanshu is with us. I think MOES is also having this focus that we should have more and more observations. We have Dr. Dinesh also here. He works in the area of GIS and remote sensing in Central University of Jammu. He is PhD from JNU. He is also doing some measurements in the Himalayan region. So we all are working together. And though, as I told you, that I don't work directly on the phenomena of cloudburst or something, but we are working on ice nucleating particles, right? So, Dr. Haldar, I think you don't mind if I am taking this time in talking about the ice
Yes, yes,
nucleating
yes,
particle thing and all.
yes.
Yeah.
No problem, because
Yeah.
we have to pass another 5 minutes, because the second speaker
So
will join
basically,
at
see, why I'm telling this link is that because whenever we are talking of aerosols, we restrict ourselves to pollution only. But very few people know that aerosols are also acting as ice nucleating particles, right? So they are acting as cloud condensation nuclei, but they are acting as ice nucleating particle. And where we are doing the, main, you should say the cutting edge research Central University of Jammu is doing, and our research at Central University of Jammu is focusing on that 1 in a million particle of aerosols also act as ice nucleating particle. And ice nucleating particle is responsible for heterogeneous freezing. That means if INP is not there, ice nucleating particle is not there, there will be homogeneous freezing. But if INP is there, heterogeneous freezing will take place, and it helps in precipitation initiation. So basically, if we see today the models, because if you are talking of cloud burst, if you are talking of anything related to climate, we are also, broadly dependent upon the climate modeling aspect also. So we are working to improve the modeling things, because one side is people like us who are focusing on the field measurements, and I should say another side is having people like Dr. Dinesh who are working on the modeling aspect. So to improve the models, we need to have field data. And if at present we don't have much data on INP, so if you happen to visit our page on Central University of Thing, or with my name, if you search, you will find our 2 latest papers in JGR atmospheres, where we are talking how INP is varying over the Indian region and the Himalayan region in aerosols as well as precipitation. So these kind of approaches when we are doing, so we are going to add towards the whatever data availability we are having, we are going to improve our understanding, basically, that how we can understand the climate better. Because if we are understanding better, we can work for it better. If we don't know, we don't have data, so I think we will not be able to understand. So I think there our role starts as a researcher, as a scientist. And I think you are asking something. I just could see, Dr. Haldar, can you see one more thing? I think
that
just
one.
reflected.
Yes, madam.
Yes,
Two
yes,
more
I can
questions.
see.
That
Can
regarding,
we, as an organization, request to government take some strictly laws to all national citizens to save our? What is that? I am. The question is half, I think. Dr. Haldar, can you see the
yes,
full question? What Mr. Baldev Kumar is asking?
just one. Yes, can only this much is there, and
Yeah.
before that, yes, only this much.
So I
But
think
one
he is saying
important,
that can we as an organization request to government take some strict actions to have something. So yeah, this is of course there. See, whenever you are saying as an organization, so first we need to know what organization you are talking about. So, but as we say, as an organization, as a research group, or as a human being, or as a, at least as an organization, as a scientist, I would say whatever we are recommending or requesting to government or anything, it should be supported by some good data. And if we are having some good data, some measurements to show our point, of course the government will take it as a, very I should say priority step. Like if you see in National Clean Air Program also, we are directly working with the Pollution Control Board. So we are having regular meetings with the Jammu Municipal Corporation. So in each state, this kind of group is active. So under National Clean Air Program in 2019 only, MOEFCC and one pollution control board and one organization from each state and UT signed an MOU to work for clean air goals in every state and UT. So similarly for disasters also, we can do something like that. I think that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Yes, nice. Madam, two more questions are there. That
Yes.
one, Swailendra Gaurji has asked, you can read at 11:37. China has made their Olympic Games in heavy rain weather. They chemically stopped this. And after that, there was a flood there. But at the same time, there was effect on Southeast Asia. Any comments on that?
See, basically, you very correctly mentioned this example. So this gives a very live example of any step if we are taking, and particularly if it is related to chemical intervention, if it is related to anthropogenic intervention in stopping the rain or creating the rain or any kind of thing, right? So we need to be doubly sure that what we are doing, we need to check our action, what we are exactly going to do, and it may lead to another disaster also. So if any type of this step anybody is doing, any organization, any government is doing, it should be well taken care of in advance with scientific intervention, discussion with people at national and international level, and then only these kind of steps should be taken, I think. And as of now, I know that Indian government under the esteemed leadership of our honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, we are not going to take any such kind of steps where we are going to have such mistakes at the government level at least, and also at the scientific bodies level also. I don't think that this kind of activity has been encouraged till now, at least in India. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, madam. And also Prithviraj Sahu has supported you. The disaster always happening at its own way. From this lecture, we can develop our society to fight against and become more resilient to stand against the natural calamities. Thank you, Mr. Dr. Sahuji. And that's all for that.
Yes, sir. And I want to mention with this that, see, generally what we say that whenever this kind of training program is happening or discussion is happening, we say that we keep discussing only, nothing happens and this and that. But I strongly believe that things happen from these kind of discussion, interaction, workshops and conferences only. Because we get take home messages, we work on the problem, and this is how actually the main action starts. So these kind of workshops are, I think, very, very helpful, particularly for our young generations who are not aware of even the minute details of disasters, climate and all. So that ways, I think all the lectures which have taken place in this training program should be beneficial for the participants, I believe.
One more question is raised by Prithviraj Sahu now after the copy is good compliment. Can we discuss about the low-cost technologies generally and easily adopted by the local area affected people for disaster management, say flood, earthquake, climatic change, epidemiology, etc.?
So basically, yeah, it's a very good question. And whenever we are talking of any problem, be it disaster, be it climate related problem, be it pollution related problem, now the focus of our nation is also on low cost technologies, sustainable technologies. But personally, I'm not aware for the earthquake or something. I think Dr. Haldar should be in a better position to answer this question, that what NIDM is doing or what NIDM's perspective is on the low cost technologies, or if there is any introduction of low cost technology. But of course, it is a sustainable way of doing the things.
NIDM is not doing it. NIDM is percolating the whatever the technologies is developing. They are simply percolating from the appropriate department, say MOES, say NGRI, Hyderabad, from them only.
I mean to say, sir, that you must be listening to more speakers and more technologies, so you may be more aware about the thing.
Yes, time to time you are hearing, but for earthquake is concerned, so far I have not listened any low cost technologies is there. So
yeah.
Obviously, that NGRI say nowadays they have developed a lot for the for this cloud burst and say animal passing. All those things are recording by the seismograph, and they are predicting also some alarm also. So like this, they are also very much aware, and they are passing the message to the people through the seismic or seismogram, etc. So this much is there, I can say.
Yeah, so like I can.
Dr. Himanshu is there. He's also from seismic. If he can like to add, he's welcome.
I think like in case of air pollution, sir, we are
Yes,
having
sir. Allah sir, you are very much right. Whatever you are saying, that till now prediction of the earthquake is very not possible in respect to space-time magnitude. But low cost is not possible. But now National Disaster Management NDMA, they have planned that how we can learn that from the earthquakes, that how much disaster may occur. So induced response system. So incident response system. If there is any earthquake occur in any places, so incident response system, that NDMA, they have started this work statewide. So statewide they are doing that. Disaster management state level is also existing. NDRF, SDRF team is also there. So if there is an earthquake occurred, because it does not give any alarm before when it occurred. So as soon as it occurred, they are just giving some training or workshop to the state level, like Himalayan region states, like Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Mizoram, Northeast India, and then also some part of the Jammu and Kashmir. Because I am attending this type of training, and I am also putting some lectures on seismology related to this. So whenever an earthquake occurs, we are giving the at the minimum time that big earthquake occurs in certain places. So now NDMA, they are giving the training to basis that there is an earthquake in this time. So how you have been prepared, your disaster management within that state, how you are preparing for to take the minimum time for disaster mitigation for that area. So they are saying it is it is just training type you have to take, and all the department like medical and CPW, whoever they are, stakeholders, they have to be work together, because whenever disasters occur, big disaster like earthquake, so communication, everything's a failure occur. So how can you communicate? So they are saying that police, that police department round the clock, they are within the states or within the different places, round the clock they are working. So you can, if you have some ham radios or some walkie-talkies, so within that walkie-talkies, you can collect the data from them that which area is much more disaster that earthquake. So by this way, you have to prepare and plan on that way, and you have to be moved together, like fire brigade and all the things, and disaster management teams like NDRF, SDRF and all the things, and they're giving a lesson learning or some training on this basis to different states. So recently Leh Ladakh also, Haryana also. So these type of states, they are giving the such type of training, and that way you can minimize the disaster losses for that.
Thank you, Dr. Mandal. Very nicely and appropriate development from this seismic side or this earthquake side from your institute. You have elaborated. Thanks a lot. Now the second speaker is on. He has joined. Dr. Raju, I hope you are there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I was really enjoying the discussion that was going on, sir.
Yes, very good. Dr. Mandal was there, and Dr. Seta is having a lot of work in this climate change. So definitely that we have benefited, and our participants has acquired a lot of knowledge from that. Now you are welcome, Dr. Raju. Now, thank you so much, and for this for joining and for sharing your knowledge in this stage. Now I would request Konika ji, so please introduce about Raju. Of course, everybody knows Raju because he's active member when he was there in NIDM. Still, then it needs his introduction. Konika ji, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dr. Raju Thapa is currently working as Technical Officer Emergency Management at Delhi for VHS CDC. Prior to this, he was working as Junior Consultant at the Early Warning and Communication Center Geometrological Risk Management Division, NIDM. Dr. Thapa was also associated with two major projects sponsored by Department of Science and Technology, Science and Engineering Research Board, and Nuclear Sciences, Department of Atomic Energy independently. Dr. Raju Thapa has published more than 50 publications in some of the leading journals under the publisher of Elsevier, Taylor and Francis and Springer, including publication in national as well as international conferences and seminars, etc. Dr. Thapa has coordinated more than 100 webinars and online training programs and also in-person training programs. Dr. Thapa has also contributed to developing one training module on communication for disaster management at NIDM. Sir, I welcome you to please deliver your lecture so that the participants can be benefited.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be a eminent speaker of this session. And like our earlier speaker already highlighted some of the key discussions, and I fully agree with Sweta ma'am that this is discussion which give rise to some of the budding points, some concepts, some ideas that may be earlier unearthed, unhidden. Like this is the point where all the points come up. This is the point where the policy makers, the decision makers, they get ideas from. So this discussions is, I think, very much we have to appreciate, we have to keep this alive. So after such an interesting session, the first session, what I am going to talk about is the basics of early warning and communication. Like ma'am was talking about the need for coordination between data collections and the modeling. So similarly, I will just try to come up with with just my presentation, where you can also link the similar thing. You will find the similar point in my presentation also. So let us just try to understand what is an early warning system, what we have to do, where we have to focus. So as my introduction already done. So before we start to the main topic, let us start with an positive vibes. Let us start with a positive example, so that we have we have an example to take. Ma'am, the picture that we are seeing is Miki Endo. She was in Japan. She was employed by the time by the crisis management department in Japan there. And during the 2001 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, that was double disaster. See, that's why we need to focus on. We are talking about multi hazards. Because during that time also there was earthquake, and because of earthquake there was tsunami, but she was there. She remained. This is her post. She remained in her post during during that tsunami, and she was there doing her duty. She was continuously making the announcement, and because of that announcement, hundreds of lives were saved in those areas. And because it's the coastal areas, the casualties would have been very high, but because of that, her continuous efforts, a lot of life was saved. But unfortunately, she was so much into her duty that when the tsunami hit the coast, the entire building was swept away by tsunami, and in that even she sacrificed her life also for saving other lives. Later on, her bravery was recognized, and she was later on termed as the angel voice. So still she is referred to as angel voice. So this is where the importance of an early warning comes. If you have the right information, if that right information is transmitted through the right medium, to the right people, at the right time, so that necessary actions can be taken, it can save hundreds and thousands of lives. I think you have already come across these figures. Those who have come already, I think it has been discussed. But one point which I specifically want to highlight here is that we have been seeing an increase in number of disasters when we compare this 2020 year data. It has increased from, if you just see this 2020 years data, it is very evident that from 4,000 now we are heading towards 7,300, almost double in number of cases. There are many reasons to that, not only because of there is an increase in intensity and frequency of disasters, but also there are other factors also which are contributing to that. One might be which Yadav ma'am was saying, the collections of data. Earlier, we didn't have that much system to record all the disasters. Some of the disasters that were in outskirt or very remote areas of very small intensity, let's say. that were not recorded. Now every disasters are recorded because we have an institutional framework that is in place, which take into actions all the, which take into actions, which have a which has a SOP to work, which has some plans. So based on that, even a small disaster that occur, that is reported, and because of that, we are seeing an increasing number of reported disasters. That is one point. And the other point is that which is very interesting for our topic, is that you will see the total number of deaths. You will see that even though the reported disaster has increased over time, the number of deaths, it's almost, I will say, almost same. Why it has been? So one of the main reason is that it is because of the advancement of science and technology. Now we are investing more in doing the groundwork. We are doing more, collecting more data. Because of that, we are having much advanced the techniques for monitoring, and because of that monitoring, we have techniques for dissemination of that whatever warnings we have a better response system. So all that, when we take together, so we have a very, very good early warning system. And because of that early warning system, now there is a little decrease in the number of deaths. Even if you see by total number of people affected by any disaster, you will see that flood top that list, almost 41% of any. When you talk about people affected by any disasters, flood is on the top of that list. And however, when we say the total number of deaths by death, when particularly talk about death, then earthquake particularly top that list, because like earlier Mandal sir was also saying that earthquake, sometimes it is very difficult for an early to have an early warning very prior, unless we measure that waves. It is very difficult to predict exactly which location and at what time an earthquake will occur, right? What will be its epicenter? So that's why it becomes sometimes very difficult for that. So, and because the response or the lead time to respond to an incoming earthquake is very, very less, sometimes that result in a lot of casualties. And you take any disasters, you drought, earthquake, anything, you will see that throughout the years, you will see that there is an increase in the numbers. You take any disasters, which again give us a warning that we need to be much more focused about this increasing intensities and frequency of disasters. This is another interesting pictorial presentation, which I thought it will be very interesting to share, because you see, when you talk about the disaster proneness of our country, India is just after China and USA. See, we are, and this why we are so much prone to disasters. There might be several points that we might discuss. You talk about the socio-economic condition of our country. You talk about the geographical location. We have Himalayas. We have the coastal areas. We have more than 7,000 kilometers of coastal areas. So all these points, apart from that, the fault, the lineament, the climatic changes, variations, all these points. The population, everything contribute together, and they makes our country much more vulnerable. And one more very interesting that you will see is that out of these 10 countries, you will see that around 8 countries are particularly in Asian continents, particularly Asian region, which again signifies that our whole country, our whole this continent as a whole is much more prone to disaster as compared to others. Similarly, just let me ask you an example. Name 2 countries with the highest number of population. The answer will be China, followed by India, right? Same is the thing. See, whenever we say number of disaster reported, you will see that India and China, they top that list. And to your surprise, it's such that 80%, around 70% of the people affected by disasters, when talk about total people affected by disaster, China and India, they only accounts for 70% of that. So that is a huge number to talk about. That's why one more, before we go on to that topic, one more very interesting thing that we need to focus on and we need to keep in our mind is that when you talk about the number of death per income group, you will see that as our incomes, as the income status or the socioeconomic status of people increases, the death percentage, the chances of the probability of death decreases, right? and around 47% of the, when you will see the number of people there, you will see low income group, it falls on that. There might be several reasons for that, but one example that I can cite is here. Suppose and person who is socially not so sound, if his ancestral area is in hilly area, suppose with very steep areas where there is every possibility of landslide, but because he is not financially sound, he know that his residential area is in a very high risk zone, right? Considering the vulnerability, the other thing, he is in a very high risk zone, but he is not financially sound that he can shift from there to some other plain areas where the risk is very less, right? Because of the financial problem, because he cannot leave that his ancestral land. So such times, so low income, sometimes it makes people to live in those areas, risky areas, the disaster risky areas. Because of that, when an actual incident occurs, yeah, they are affected to a very large number of extent. And also one more very interesting point is that morbidity to natural disasters. Whenever we are talking about that, you will be surprised to know that in any disasters, women and children, they are 14 times much more vulnerable to men as compared to, as they are much more compared, when we compare it with the men, they are 14 times much more vulnerable. And this is not just random data. You take the example of our Indian Ocean tsunami 2004. There, about 70% of the victims who lost their life, who lost their life, were women. You take the example of Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar, particularly those areas where when you take the age group of 16 to age group from 18 to 60, you will see that most of those 18 to 60 age groups people, double the number of women affected were double as compared to men. This is not only a problem with India. You take the example of Katrina, okay, in US, where the women affected people were much more, particularly the Afro-American people, because of the less education about this, less knowledge of that, and because of the socio-economic conditions also, they were the one who got much more affected. So we also need to focus about the safety of our women, safety of our children, gender perspective. It needs to be brought on whenever we are talking about disaster management and making our society resilient to disasters. Pandemic, it has affected several countries, no doubt, almost all countries, and it has given us a lesson that we are not at all prepared when we are talking about multi-hazard approach, when we are talking about multiple hazards at one time. So it has exposed our preparedness to disaster management. So, and it has also paved the way for our future actions, where we can talk about when we are talking about the sustainable development goals, various goals that where India is also a signatory, where we have to achieve those goals. It has also paved the way to work on towards that. And it has laid down the shifting contours of this particularly Asia Pacific disaster landscape, where during COVID we were faced by heavy cyclones, by forest fire, by drought. We also faced flood situations. We also faced the locust swamp. I think you remember 2021. So during pandemic time, all these were going on, which and highlighting the need to consider compounded disasters rather than just focusing on independent disasters. Now I think it's high time that we take into consideration multi-hazard approach rather than hazard specific approach to multi-hazard approach. This is what COVID-19 has highlighted. And these are just the examples in in our South Pacific Asia. You take any examples, you take the Afghanistan, Australia, everywhere we were facing disasters. You take the example of Philippines, where Cyclone Goni affected, and because of that, what happened? The COVID samples that were there, the COVID testing samples that were kept in their laboratory, that laboratory got damaged, and because of that, all the samples got destroyed, and the peoples who were having COVID positive, since they were not aware ever about their COVID test, they were roaming around because they were not sure whether it was negative or positive. So that again lead to further spread of COVID-19 in that area. And during so that was some of the case. And in our country also, during COVID-19, we were faced by cyclone Amphan. And because of that, in West Bengal itself, this cyclone Amphan in Bangladesh, in West Bengal, it has damaged several, I think thousands of the community, health centers. And those health centers, it contained several vaccines, several tests, sample test of people, all those were destroyed. That lead to a problem in managing of COVID-19. Not only that, take the example of our flood in Assam also. I think it was in the month of July or so May, I think it was in the month of May, when because of the flood in Assam is every yearly phenomena because of the Brahmaputra. I think everybody knows that. But during that time, because there was COVID also, and similarly in Amphan also, when people were moved to the relief camp or the cyclone shelter in Amphan and here in relief camp, they were not aware how to deal with that, because earlier response was different. Earlier response here in COVID-19, you have to maintain the social distancing and other point also. But earlier the situation were not like that. So our people, our staff who were working there on the ground were not trained. And there were situations where the NDRF people were all, they were tested positive. They got infected because of when they were carrying out this response during COVID-19. So which again gives us an idea that we have to have a multi-hazard approach. And this is not only recognized only by India. This whole event and this need for a multi-hazard approach and multi-hazard early warning system, it has been realized throughout by various organizations, and it has been highlighted in various countries, and it has been highlighted in various agreements. You talk about Paris Agreement, COP21, you talk about sustainable SDGs, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. Everywhere it has been highlighted that we need to focus on a multi-hazard approach. We need to enhance our science and technology so that we can have a better early warning system. And similarly, our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji also highlighted the PM 10-point agenda, where there are several points that in that 10-point mantras he laid down. There are several points which indicates that we need to focus on enhancing our science and technology, our mapping system. We need to invest in mapping system. Point number, I think, 4, point number 5, point number 7, where again he talks about the use of social media for disaster risk reduction. So several points he was highlighted that where he focuses on indicating that science and technology can be a mean of coping with the disaster situations. I think since the last 3 days you have been talking about this, so you already have an idea that our country is prone to a large number of disasters. Needless to say. So this is why I say that we need to have a disaster risk reduction and resilience approach, because there are, though our country is facing a large number of disasters, there are some of the things there are beyond our hand, right? At our present knowledge of science and technology, we cannot stop disaster from occurrence. But however, we can reduce our contact with the disasters, or we can reduce our risk to that disasters. So this is where we need to focus currently. And whenever we are talking about an early warning system, we have to understand that there are 2-3 priorities that we focus. The first priority for any early warning system is to safeguard the life of the people, because saving the life is the people is the prime is the priority of the early warning system, is the priority of the government or everybody, because saving life of the people is the foremost priority. The second priority, that is safeguarding the assets, the infrastructure, the investment that is there, because when you safeguard, when you save the investment, whether that is government investment, the critical infrastructures or the bridges or the road, when the government save those critical investment, it not only save itself from a huge cost of recovery and rehabilitation, but also the money that is saved, it can be used in various development projects, coming up with new development, it can be invested somewhere else. So that's why it's always said that $1 invested in early warning is is equivalent to $8 to $10. That will be equivalent to $8 to $10 that is wasted in recovery and rehabilitation. So this is the case. So that's why we need to focus on the whole concept of early warning system. First is priority to save life. Second is the priority to save infrastructure, and also to safeguard the environment until unless, because we are known with our with our surroundings. Until unless our environment is safe, we are safe. So we also need to ensure that our environment is safe. So that is also one of the priorities of early warning system. So you may ask me whether is it really is there any output of this early warning system that we talk about here? Does it really work? Yes, it do work, and there are many examples where public education and the rapid widespread dissemination of early warning has saved thousands of lives. I have just presented one example, the 1977 cyclone in Andhra Pradesh in India. It killed more than 10,000 people, while a similar storm in the same area 13 years later, it killed only 910 people. This drastic difference, why there was such a drastic 10,000 to less than 1,000, was due to the fact that there was a new early warning system that was connected with the radio station to alert the people in low-lying areas. That was put in place, and because of that, people were alerted. Those people living in coastal areas, particularly the high-risk areas, they were alerted. They were moved to some relief or some cyclone shelters that are relatively safe from those areas, and because of that, the casualties were much less. Here, I would also like to highlight that prior to 2000, I will say 2000 or 2005 when DM Act it was enacted. But prior to that, you will be surprised to know that our today's approach that we have towards disaster, it was not there from the beginning. Earlier, our approach was quite traditional approach where we focus much more in response, relief, right? Response and relief. Our approach was much more response to relief. Basically, what I means to say was earlier our approach was whenever there will be a landslide or any disaster, cyclone, flood, earthquake, tsunami, fire, what we used to do is that we used to after the disaster we used to do the response, like for rescue, rehabilitation and all. But after the one of the main event was the Bhuj earthquake, where it was an eye-opening, I will say, for us, where we have lost so many lives, so many innocent life, and also the 2004 the Indian Ocean tsunami, Sumatra tsunami, where again it was again very important turning point, not only in India, throughout the world, this 2004, because after that people have understood, or people have understand what is the need of focusing more on hazards, the vulnerabilities, the exposures, identifying the risks that are there. So this managing disaster risks was much more in limelight after that event. And after the enactment of the Disaster Management Act, also now we have institutional frameworks out there. We have nodal agencies who are doing their role in measuring, in monitoring of various disasters. So now what we are seeing is that particularly at least for I will say the weather-related hazards, we often have some information ahead of the upcoming disaster event. For example, cyclone, and that information, it can be interpreted and used to prepare the emergency operation much more better. So in this, what I say is early warning, early action approach. We make full use of the climate information that we have because of our organization that are working there. And we act in a way that prepare us much more as a society, much more as a whole, but also with a more strategic approach to disaster response. So here you see earlier we had disasters, then followed by the response. But now we have early warnings. Based on the early warning, see, you will take some early action, suppose flood. And after that, there will be disaster event, followed by if you have taken some good steps, early steps, then the response team can come and they can find you and you can be saved. So coming to the early warning system, what are the components of early warning system? As the warning, whenever we are talking about early warning system, it is not a single component, right? Like the name itself suggests, early warning system is much more than just forecasting in combination with networks for transmitting those warnings to the people. No, it is much more than that. For an early warning system to be effective, the inclusions and interactions between 4 key elements is very, very vital. The first one is the risk knowledge, followed by monitoring and warning services, the dissemination and communication, and the response capacity. So very briefly, we will just discuss there, because each topic is a whole topic in itself. Basically, risk knowledge, I think you have already come across this, that risk arises from the combination of hazards and vulnerability at a particular location. And for this reason, risk knowledge is a key element of successful early warning system. Basically, until and unless you know what are your risks, you are not going to take an appropriate actions. To take some good step, appropriate step, you need to find out your risk, right? Then only you can mitigate that. Okay. For example, if your child or your brother is weak in math, first you need to identify that he is weak in math, so that afterwards you can give him math tuitions, or you can give him extra coachings, or you can take action on that. First, you need to identify the risk. The similar is with the hazards also. If you are in coastal areas, you need to identify, suppose your building, your office is in coastal areas, you need to identify what are the hazards that you are vulnerable to. Whether there is a history of flood in your area, whether there is a history of cyclone in your area, is there possibility of coastal erosions, is there any chemical industries nearby, which because of which explosions you might be affected, or there is some high power electricity power going on just above your building, which due to some cyclone it can it can come over you, whether there is thunderstorm or lightning scenario, flood scenario. So all these is your risk knowledge. This comes with risk assessment, which ma'am was also talking about. Yadav ma'am was also talking about initial collecting ground collections, ground data. So once you have this data, then only you can move ahead with the second component, that is monitoring and warning services. Once you know what are your risks, then only you can monitor them. And this monitoring and warning services are what most often comes to our mind when we talk about early warning system. This is the infrastructure, I will say, that delivers the forecast and warning. And this monitoring is the act of collecting information alongside with a set of proxy variables. What I mean to say is that suppose you want to understand about the earthquake, let us say, then you won't be measuring rainfall, right? You will be measuring the correlation, like the seismic waves that are there, right? So this is thing like monitoring is collecting variables related to your subject of interest, and this it can be done in a variety of ways. Like I said, because of the satellite, particularly for disaster management, satellite is like a boon to us. The satellite imagery, it can be used in a variety of ways in various stages of disaster management, right from planning to relief and recovery, to during disaster, post disaster, pre-disaster. Everywhere you will find that the satellite imagery can be used, the satellite communication, the satellite technology can be used. So you can collect data on that various. There are land-based radars for estimating downpours. We have in our IMD also we have AWS automatic weather stations, Doppler weathers, right? All that are there. Apart from that, ground point is also sometimes very, very important for if you are doing with the rainfall. Particularly, we have for our CWC, Central Water Commissions, they have various, there are monitoring stations located at various points in the river across throughout India. They collect on that point, readings about the water level. Similarly, that point data collection is also important. And one more very important point about monitoring and warning services is the expertise, to have expertise. Once you have all this data, the satellite data, you need to have that expertise also, that you can understand data, you can process that data, and you can make something useful out of that data. Until unless you have that expertise, you cannot make full use of the information that is available. So that's why to understand the trend analysis or anything, we need to have an expert who can use those data for coming up with an warning. Once you have the warning, the third component come into play of any early warning system, that is dissemination and communication. Now, because suppose take example of any hilly areas that you have any information that a fast flood is going to come. Until and unless those information is reached to the people who are vulnerable or who are in the downstream of the river where that fast flood is going to occur, if that information is not reached to the people, to the needed people, to the community who are at risk, then the whole concept of early warning system is of no use, right? So that's why making that information available to the right people is very, very important in right time. And there are various means through which these informations can be disseminated. It can be radio, television. Nowadays, social media is playing a very, very important role where you get immediate information on that, your Facebook, your WhatsApp, print media, if in case of cyclone and others, where we have lead time that I think you have come across that IMD is doing an absolutely great job, particularly in cyclone monitoring and warning. They early stage, prior to 6 to 7 days before, they already they inform us that a depression is being formed in BOB, like Bay of Bengal, in Arabian Sea. Like, they have that information, they have that technique. So in those type of where we have the lead time is very, very high, 3-4 days, print media also can play a very important role. Apart from that, mobile app, now we have various mobile apps that are there, Mosam, Damini, right? There are so many other apps also, Bhukamp by NCS. There are so many TN Smart in Tamil Nadu by Tamil Nadu SDMA authority. Like that, there are so many apps which are giving information about upcoming disasters. So all that can be is also there. Also, you can find the information or the websites or email. Yes, our nodal agencies who are responsible for releasing early warning, they have their own respective websites also. So websites can also be a source of or means of transmitting those warnings, apart from some siren speakers, community radio. Community radio, particularly, or ham radio, they play a very important role in situations such as in West Bengal and all. When we have cyclone scenario, when most of our communication system are disrupted because of the cyclone, because of the high wind, during that time, this community radio, ham radio can play a very, very important role. And whenever you are receiving some early warnings, or whenever you are forwarding, suppose you receive some during COVID-19, I think you have all come across a large number of fake news, right? Fake informations like Kara pillow, ye pillow, wo pillow. Most of them may be fake, right? So before you transfer those information to other WhatsApp groups where you have your loved ones, your parents, your families, you need to take into consideration certain points. And also, when you get some early warning, please ensure that some of the key answers, like it has that early warning has, because in disaster situation, when time is very less, information should be short, information should be crisp. So it should have some important point like who is it about, what is going to happen, when will it take place, where will it take place, or like why will it happen. So certain points, we call it 5W and H. So if these points are discussed, so that like where to go, what is the evacuation route, right? All this, if they have to evacuate and go to somewhere, this simple answers, if it is there, it will be very, very helpful. And there are certain points that you can do before transmitting or before sharing that information, like identifying the source of that information, or guarding against subjective errors, or several other things. And now everywhere you see breaking news. So you have to be sure that whether that news, you have to be very judicious about that. And you have to see diverse perspective also. It might be that both are correct. So whenever you are having any judgmental or anything, so you have to be, when you are passing that information, you seek very diverse perspective also. And the last component of any an early warning system is the response capacity. So despite of all our preparedness, some disasters, they occurs, right? So we also have to make sure that our response capacity is enhanced, and we are ready to face disasters, right from community level. Because community are the first responder, so we have to prepare ourselves in such a way that our community are also prepared, apart from our other infrastructures. So that's why we need to have more and more of mock drills, trainings like this one. We can provide some checklist also, suppose checklist of action that checklist can be used during disaster response, whether it has been completed. Yes, that will be very handy in disaster situations. So our response capacity also, we need to focus on that. And definitely, when we are talking about this early warning system, it is not in one-man job. There are lot of organizations that are engaged here, and this is only possible once we have the consistency, once we have the cooperation, coordination, and collaboration among all the stakeholders that are there in picture. So that's why we say alone we can do so little, together we can do so much, right, Helen Keller? So that's why we say, and different organizations may have different perspective, but once you take the perspective of everybody, then you get a complete picture, like shown in this example. This one I already said, during disasters, most of the time communication network, it get disrupted. So that's why we need to have a backup. Rather, I also take this opportunity to share that our institutions, our academic institutions, hospitals, which are very key places, critical places, they may have an ham radio or amateur radio professional who can use that, so that during disaster they can serve the society if needed. So we need to equip ourselves in such a way. So in the end, when you take all the four components of an early warning system, so effective end-to-end and people-centered early warning system, it includes four integrated key elements. Like we discussed, the disaster risk knowledge based on the systematic collection of data and disaster risk assessment. The second is the detection, the monitoring, the analysis, and also the forecasting of the hazards and possible consequences that is going to occur. The third component, the dissemination and communication by an official source of by an official authority who is there, who has that power to do that in a very timely manner, in an accurate manner, and that warning should be actionable warning, like we discussed already. And it must be associated, the associated information also on likelihood of the impacts, also what is going to happen, that should also be there, so that people can somehow they can understand the intensity of that disaster. And the last is the preparedness at all level to be coordinated within and across sectors and multi-level for the system, so that we can work effectively, and we can also and we also have a feedback mechanism also for continuous improvement, because we need to improve ourselves continuously. And we also have to understand that failure in any one of these four components that we talked about, or lack of coordination in any one of them, could lead to failure of the whole system. So that's why an early warning system, we talk about, has four components, and all the components are equally important. Sorry. So just for example, I took flood as an example. I'll just very briefly say that for flood, Central Water Commission is the nodal agency who looks after all the warning and disseminations. And it is the premier technical organization under Ministry of Jal Shakti. And here I will just like to say that this CWC in collaboration with Google, they have come up very nicely. And here our government of India, we have our gauge measurements and forecasts. We have our own monitoring, like I said, flood monitoring stations. Those data, we share it with the Google, and Google with their satellite imagery, with their Google dam generations, it implement that, and they come up with an hydraulic map model with giving rise to the inundation map. And that map, after using all the information from CWC and various maps from Google, using various platforms, it gives out an output map. So this output map, it contains information about which areas, the area where it will be flooded, and that information is available at your fingertip. Like, you can access that data, just type your area name, and it will show like whether your area is like there is chances of flood or not. So all these are available right to the to the public user, and also they share this information with our government also, so that they can also take actions, and also they provide those information to their to the communities with which they are working on, so they can also make use of that information. And in community, when we talk about once the community have that information, suppose the technical person who is there, who have that information about an impending suppose flood that is coming up, he can, if he has if they have an WhatsApp group or any group, he send that information to the community people out there. Based on that information, they take immediate actions, and based on that immediate actions, they move to an elevated area where they are safe from the flood water. This is just an example to show that how, based on an early warning information that people have, and early actions can be taken, and based on that early action, a lot of life can be saved. And there are some cross-cutting issues also which needs to be highlighted. Like for any effective early warning system, it is very important to have an effective governance and institutional, and we need to have an effective institutional arrangements also. Until unless we have and supporting institutional arrangements, our efforts won't be that much fruitful. So that's why we say well-developed governance and institutional arrangement support for the successful development, and also the sustainability of and sound early warning system is very, very important. Like I discussed earlier also, we need to have a multi-hazard approach. We have gone through the COVID-19 scenario also. There are so many disasters, the triple disasters in Japan, where one disaster lead to the other disaster, occurrence of other disaster. Take the example of I think Sikkim 2011, if I'm not mistaken, because of the earthquake there, that resulted in more than 100 landslides in nearby areas. So one disaster can lead to other disaster. That's why it is high time that we have some multi-hazard approach. Apart from that, involvement of local communities is also one of the very important point that we need to focus on, because community are the first and the last responders. So until unless they are prepared, our whole effective concept of early warning system, effective early warning system won't work. And we need to consider the gender perspective also, and cultural diversity also, because whenever we are talking about disaster preparedness plan and everything, we need to ensure that whether we have considered all the gender perspective, the elderly people. Suppose I will just give an example. Like you consider your own building, your own institutions building. Is there a way? Suppose if there is an earthquake, you have 5 minutes to go down to the open ground. Is there a way that suppose and physically different people, those person who cannot walk, can he reach there? Like, is there a way where he can crawl his wheelchair up to that, either like not using the lift? Is there any way? Whether he can do that successfully? So all this plan, have you considered what about the old people? Can he reach there? Like considering all this, the gender perspective, all this we have to consider. We also have to respect the cultural diversity of the people. Then only we have to implement this early warning system. So in this implementation, we have to understand that there are various key actors who have a very important role to play. The community, definitely, like I said, they have a very important, the local government in bringing out the problems of the community to the central government in when after having consultation with the community, because we have to engage community as a stakeholder, as a partner, not as a recipient. So raising the voice of the community to the higher central government, so that is also important, where in this area, local government can play a very important role. The central government definitely has a very important role to play in coming out with plans, in coming out with policies, funds, relief, response, officials who can work. All these central government can play a very important role. The regional institutions and organizations also, like WHO, they can also play important role working with the community, coming out with projects, funds, helping community. International bodies also, sometimes it is not always necessary that we learn from our mistakes. Sometimes we can learn from mistakes of other countries also. What went wrong in other country, what actions they took, what went well, what went less well. So all that documentation, if we can get access, international bodies can help in bringing those point forward. Apart from NGOs also had a very important role to play, because NGOs, they are very much associated and they work with the community. They are grounded, their roots are in the community. So they know all the strengths and weakness of a community. So they also play a very important role. The private sector also, in a private sector such as, they can play a role in developing, new early warning system. They can cope up with the, they can assist government in coming up with new ideas, new innovations. And of course, needless to say, our science and academic community, we have a very important role to play, right from identifying the gaps, the challenges, the need, the future innovations, future ideas, giving out some documents, or I will say the first-hand work to the policymaker to discuss on. So we also have a very important role to play in an effective early warning system. So if towards way forward, I will say, like, there are few points that we need to focus on. The first is the concentrated impact due to a single disaster type in some in some countries provides an opportunity for a more focused approach. So I will say that there is a requirement for strengthening the disaster risk governance to manage disaster risk with a very clear vision, competence, plans. We need to have guidelines, funding and coordinations across sectors, and in a manners which take account into increasingly systematic nature of disaster risk. Funding, in the sense, our academic institutions can be funded by DSTs or other funding organizations, so that the researchers, the professors, the faculties, they can carry out several research in different aspects of disaster management. There is also, I think, requirement for public and private investment also in disaster risk prevention and reduction through structural, whether through structural or non-structural measures, so that it will help in stepping up the creation of disaster resilient society that we are talking about. And we also need to focus in sharing of knowledge and information in local language also, to reach out to the communities, those who are residing in remote areas with very limited knowledge of Hindi and English. So we also need to have focus on vernacular languages also. And this technological innovation broadcast techniques also system, it is evolving day by day, and we need to evolve so that better informations reach to the people, in a very timely manner, and better data collections. I will say better data sharing also, because we have very nodal agencies who are collecting data, but as a researcher, which I have also faced, is that availability of data. Sometimes when we are doing our research, sometimes very important data which could be shared with the people who are working on ground, that is not available with them. So they have to sometimes repeat or recollect those data, which is not only wastage of time, in my personal perspective, which is also wastage of efforts, right, and the funds also. So that's why I say we need to have my personal is that we need to have a repository of data. Some data that can be used by researchers should be easily available to the researchers, so that data can be used by them, it can be processed by them, and some meaningful informations can be driven out through those data. So in the end, to end my presentation, I will just say that we are facing several disasters, and this is going to be like that. In a days to come also, we will be facing several disasters, whether it is geometeorological disasters, whether it is earthquake, flood, cyclone, drought. But we have to understand that you cannot stay at your place and say that it is none of my business. Now we have to understand that disaster management or disaster actions toward disaster is everybody's business. Whether you are a scientist, whether you are a politician, whether you are just a community person, everybody has a business, everybody has a role to play in disaster risk reductions. And once all of us understand our responsibility, we understand our duty, that we have towards disaster risk reduction and making our disaster resilience. This is where when we will try to achieve, or when we will move towards and envision that NIDM see that disaster resilient country. So that's why I said disaster risk reduction is key to sustainable development and climate change adaptation. So with this, I would like to end my presentation, and back to you, Haldar sir.
Thank you, Dr. Raju. In very simple language and warmly, you have spread the message how the disaster risk reduction should be done in all the way. Starting from, say, the status you have shown, the number of disasters taken place, say, to 1980 to 1999 all over India, that total 4,212 disasters taken place, whereas it has been nearly double in the year, say, 2000 to 2019. At that time, the number of disasters was 7,348. But you have given the statistics of death, that is fatalities, it is almost same. In that period, 1980 to 99, that was 1.19 million. And similarly, the death toll, it was in the period of, say, 2000 to 2019, that was 1.23 million. So almost nearby, very little difference there. So in between that, there is a big role played, which have nicely highlighted, that is the early warning. Especially in India, it is in leading stage, and they are taking, and also in case of cyclone, so they are having vibrant and very good development. It is there. And also you have highlighted very important things during the COVID period, say 2020, 21, and parts of 2022 also. The several disasters were taken place along with the COVID. So cyclones were there. That Amphan, that was in Bengal, Odisha, it was there. At that time, even that West Bengal, that election was going on. So where the involvement of community, involvement of publics are there, but in that crisis, so how it has managed. I mean to say that multi-hazard, that cyclone was there, COVID, obviously it was there, and flood in most of the regions in India, it was there. So in Gujarat, Bombay, and Maharashtra, it is always there. So how they have managed. And you have highlighted that multi-hazard approach is the need, and what you are doing, and what CDC is spreading, what NIDM is spreading the message, and obviously that multi-hazard approach they have applied, and they have got a proper result also. And you have also very highlighted nicely that effective early warning systems. I'm not going to details of that, but very, very good topics. You have alerted our participants nicely, elaborately, and I hope they will take care, and they have taken those points, they have noted those points very wisely and nicely. And the key actors, what are the need for the hour, and you have highlighted very, very nicely, very exhaustive way, you have explained in good language. And finally, you have given the take-home message also. And let me see, Dr. Raju, your presentation is very good and very impressive. Let me see if anything is there, or else you can. That one question is raised, Mr. Baldev Kumar at 12:13. What is our early warning system locally in case of any disasters if network not available?
See, Baldev sir, this is the very, this is the real question. So this is where all the things comes up. Like this is where thing changes from paper to work. Because like I said in my presentation also, during disasters, in certain disasters, take the example of cyclone, the communication medium to which we are dependent on, it is most of the times it gets disrupted. So if you're fully dependent on your social media, your platform, electronic media, sometimes those gets disrupted. So during those times, what come into play is the community preparedness that you have, the local preparedness that you have taken, the action, the investment that you have done in preparedness. What are the actions that you have done? Have you done several mock drills? that in this situation, this is in our village, this is the highest elevated area. So in case of any fast flood, this is our point where everybody will meet within half hour. So that if anybody is missing there, we will count the head. If that is missing, we will search for that person. Is there any such type of plan? See, all the plans should not be written on, it should not be documented, like it may not be written, it may not be 100 pages, but if that small plan that you have at your village level, at your house level also, I will say, if that is there, if that is understood by all the members, then that is our early warning, early warning system. So what I will say is that if there is no network available, this is where our preparedness comes into play. So that's why we need to focus much more on our response capacity. We need to take in actions, beforehand. And now Government of India, it is taking up several actions, like NIDM giving out capacity building, NDMA also making up the Mitra. Do you in your locality, do you have the contact number of the nearest SDMAs, the relief team? Do you have the phone number of the fire brigade nearest you? Do you have the phone number of police that is there? This is the preparedness that you can do. This is, and how you can reach to them. What is the shortest route to reach them in case you don't have the network ability? So this is, I will say, Baldev sir, this is what we can do at at our level. Sir, back to you.
Fine. Nicely you have explained. And one gentleman, he has appraised that your angel's voice. He has written a very big chapter, but ultimately he is saying that radio safe, we are depending on that and we should follow that. So
yes, I definitely believe that our country is such that the beauty of our country is that women, our goddesses, they have always lead us front, and we should take those examples where women, specifically women, they take the lead. We should learn from them the initiatives that the courage that they have shown. So that's why that was my whole motto about sharing that story. And thanks, and I appreciate that you like that message. Thank you.
Lastly, one Dr. Satta R. He has asked in 1243. In disaster management, is there any opportunity in biotechnology by using this early stage can be detected in satellite? We can make early stages like environmental devices can be introduced. He might be complementing or something.
Yes, sir. Actually, I didn't got the question correctly, sir.
Biotechnology also added, or what he is going to say, is it complementing the technology for early warning? Exactly not detected. So I would request, so please write fresh way and send it to me so that it could be given we can send the proper answer to you also. In the meantime, so please raise it. Thank you, Dr. Raju.
Thank you, sir.
Very good deliberation. Nicely, you have given the good message to the community. So nice of you. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now, madam, it is the today's lectures are over. Now, the important sessions that is waiting, and our expert is also with us, Professor Asal Singh. Now, I would request Konika, before hand over the stage to him, that can you appraise, or let me appraise what are the outcomes of 3 days? Or Madam Setaji, can you lead?
Sir, I don't have all the details at present in my hand, so I think you can do that justice. But one point I want to really appreciate what Dr. Raju has just said, that he was talking about the importance of vernacular languages and local languages for the disaster risk reduction. So in tune with that, we have Professor Russell Singh, our Dean, School of Languages, with us. Sir, if you can hear me, you can switch on your video because we are moving towards valedictory session now. So I think it is very much in tune that now Sir is here with us. I welcome you, sir. And yes, Dr. Haldar, I think you can summarize that what we have done in the last 3 days, and then we can move towards valedictory address.
Professor Russell Singh Sahab, we are welcoming. It is welcome to you, and we are here to listen to you on these valedictory sessions. Before over the stage to you, I hope you are there, sir. Could you hear
Yes.
us?
Yes, yes, yes.
Sir, we
Nice,
can't
nice.
see you, but okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence in this important session. Now, before over the stage to you, just I'll take only 2 minutes that I'll see the brief overview of the last 3 days outcome. That it was the basically the training on risk reduction, and it was online training for 3 days, and it is in collaboration with the Central University of Jammu. And within these 3 days, the keynote address was given by Professor Surya Prakash. He has addressed what are the need, what are the things going on, especially during starting from COVID and now last 2-3 years, and what are the participants' role he has highlighted. And after that, this special address was given by our Professor Bhau in place of Vice Chancellor. He, due to his sudden engagement, he could not come, he could not join. Professor Bhau has highlighted the university's role and disasters role are doing by NIDM and other such type of body, and we should be precaution during the disaster, and we should also motivate the public as well as students. So utmost preparedness and mitigation measure, and to help others also in that at that crucial stage, how to get the safe, and also different lot of things he said. And so that was the inaugural session. Thereafter, technical session was started. On that day, only 2 speakers was there. First was talked by from NRSC, National Remote Sensing Service Center, scientist Praveen Kumar Bandi. So he talked in NDEM, National Disaster Emergency Management System, and he was talked of the role of NDM in disaster management. So what are the data are built or constructed or fabricated or collected by this NRSC, all types of the disaster data and what they are doing, how they are spreading, all the things he has explained very nicely. After that, our Himanshu Shekhar Mandalji, scientist from National Center for Seismology, MOES, he has given a very warm or nice lecture with the data, with the modeling of Delhi and NCT area, how these vulnerabilities are going on, and how he has measured through his model, through the equation he has derived, and he prepared the micro-seismic zone in NCT and other areas of micro-seismic zone he has highlighted for that. And so that was the first day. 2 special lectures were there. Second day was first that it was talked by Mr. Anil Kathet from this emergency management, DHS CDC India. He talked on landslide, understanding the behavior of fragile slopes and their management. He beautifully explained they are in the landslides in different regions of India, what is going on, what is there, and lot of pros and cons. He talked about the landslide in his presentation. And thereafter, our beloved Professor Sulindhar Sab, he is a head Department of Environmental Sciences of Central University of Jammu. He has given a very impressive lecture on Govt, glacial lake outburst flood, and especially in the Himalayan region, and what is going on, especially climate change, and how the lakes are developing. Apart from the reducing the glaciers, lakes are developing. He has shown the different statistics in that area, and different Govts are taking place in India. He says about different causes and what are the probable causes and what we should do. And also he said drastically that it is very difficult to put early warning in that area, especially for Govt. Still India is trying. And thereafter, I have talked on the GIS for disaster risk reduction, different views of GIS, that is how GIS and internet are managing the different kinds of, say, disasters stages, say preparatory, then planning, then response, mitigation, what are the roles of GIS, it has been highlighted, and different maps or the different performance of the GIS in disaster risk reduction, all the things it has been highlighted during my presentation. So that was the second day. This was important. 3 lectures were there. Now today, the first lecture, it was 2 lectures. That first was the Dr. Seta from the Central University of Jammu, and also she is convener and collaboration and community of Research and Development Cell in Central University of Jammu. She talked about the climate-driven disaster in Himalayan region. Very nicely, especially what is happening in the climate, and day by day it is increasing. She said very wisely that what are the phenomena and what are the solution, adopted pictures she has given in front of public, so that precautionary measure and what is the role, especially for the climate. It could be reduced, the climatic disasters, only by awareness and only by the participation's role of public as well as all human. It could be reduced. So she has given the message. After that, Dr. Raju Thappa, he has taken the class on early warning system. Right now, he has given a very good message that what are the warning India is developing, what are the role of the community, and very nicely message he has given to the participants that in early warning stage, India is improving obviously, and lot of role, again, it is depending on the communities, and communities they are performing, and also each and every person. So what we are gathering from the different kinds of this type of webinar training, we should pass on to the nearby person so that they can take care of their neighbors, homes, and other person for at the time of disaster. And certain disasters are obviously predicted, and certain things still it is not predicted. So early warning is not that much. So he has given a very good idea and very vibrating lecture on that. So after that, now we are end of the technical sessions. We are in the stage of this validity session. So our beloved professor is with us. So he'll take care. Now I hand over the stage to Setaji. So please introduce about him. Could you hear us?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Haldar. I think Professor Russell Singh, sir, is there, but his video is somehow not abled. So I welcome you, sir, for
अब
this.
हो गया क्या?
सर अभी भी नहीं हो रहा है.
अब हो गया? मेरी आवाज आ रही है श्वेता जी?
हाँ जी सर, आपकी आवाज आ रही है. We can hear you, sir, but हम आपको देख नहीं पा रहे. Video is not on, sir. So, Konika, can you give a brief introduction, please?
अभी दिखाई?
No, sir.
It's
Sir, we can only hear you, sir. आपका वीडियो ऑन नहीं है अभी भी. I think वो ऑप्शन या तो उसमें नहीं आ रहा है, कुछ इश्यू है आई थिंक. कोनिका, आप इंट्रोड्यूस कर दीजिए सर को इतना इधर.
मैं स्वागत करती हूँ माननीय प्रोफेसर रसल सिंह जी का, जो कि प्रोफेसर और अध्यक्ष के रूप में हिंदी एवं अन्य भारतीय भाषा विभाग जम्मू केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय में कार्यरत हैं. साथ ही विश्वविद्यालय के अधिष्ठाता आधुनिक
I think there is some issue at Konika's end.
में निर्वाचन सदस्य दिन पत्र.
Konika, your internet is weak. I think let me
गांव में
introduce.
सामाजिक, राजनीतिक और साहित्य
Because it is breaking actually. Konika, let me speak.
Yes, madam. Dear
Ji,
participants,
sir.
sorry that now it will be given the details about our Professor Russell Singh.
जी सर। सर प्रोफेसर रसल सिंह जी प्रोफेसर और अध्यक्ष के रूप में हिंदी एवं अन्य भारतीय भाषा विभाग जम्मू केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय में कार्यरत हैं। साथ ही विश्वविद्यालय के अधिष्ठाता छात्र कल्याण एवं अधिष्ठाता भाषा संकाय के दायित्व का भी निर्वहन कर रहे हैं। इससे पहले दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय के किरोड़ीमल कॉलेज में पढ़ाते थे। 2 कार्यविधि के लिए दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय के अकादमिक परिषद के निर्वाचित सदस्य रहे हैं। सर दैनिक जागरण, अमर उजाला, पंचान्य, ऑर्गेनाइजर, डेली एक्सेलसियर आदि विभिन्न पत्र पत्रिकाओं में सामाजिक, राजनीतिक और साहित्यिक विषयों पर नियमित लेखन करते हैं। सर मैं आपका स्वागत करती हूँ। आपका वीडियो भी सर अब दिख रहा है, हम आपको देख पा रहे हैं।
नमस्कार। दरअसल मैं तकनीक में उतना ज्यादा एक्सपर्ट नहीं हूँ, इसलिए आपको असुविधा हुई, इसके लिए क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ। सबसे पहले तो मैं इस विद्वानों के पैनल को नमस्कार करता हूँ और राष्ट्रीय आपदा प्रबंधन संस्थान और जम्मू केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय के पर्यावरण अध्ययन विभाग को बधाई देना चाहता हूँ कि उन्होंने इतने महत्वपूर्ण विषय पर ये 3 दिन का ट्रेनिंग कैंप आयोजित किया है। और क्योंकि मैं खुद इस विषय से सीधे तौर पर नहीं जुड़ा हुआ हूँ, इसलिए इस विषय की महत्ता को मैं समझ सकता हूँ। सन 1999 में जब उड़ीसा में सुपर साइक्लोन आया था तो मुझे भी एनएसएस का मैं प्रेसिडेंट था उन दिनों में हिंदू कॉलेज में दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय में। तो एनएसएस टीम की तरफ से वहां जाकर के रिहेबिलिटेशन का काम करने का अवसर मिला था। उस दौरान मैंने देखा था कि NIDM की टीम किस तरह से काम कर रही थी, उनको बड़ा नजदीक से मुझे देखने का अवसर मिला था, सौभाग्य मिला था। तो तब से तो काफी ज्यादा उनका काम बढ़ गया है, व्यवस्थित हो गया है और मैं समझता हूँ कि उनकी जो भूमिका है राष्ट्रीय जीवन में वो एक जीवन रक्षक की भूमिका है और मैं उन्हें देवदूत से कम नहीं मानता। लेकिन साथ ही मैं ये भी बात रेखांकित करना चाहूंगा यहाँ पर कि अभी समाज के अंदर जो ये संस्थान है इसका जो काम है और जो तमाम तरह की आपदाएं हमारे देश में और दुनिया में आती हैं उनको लेकर के जागरूकता का बड़ा अभाव है। तो ये जो ट्रेनिंग कैंप किया है या इस प्रकार के जो अवेयरनेस कैंप हैं उस तरह के कार्यक्रमों की बहुत ज्यादा आवश्यकता है जिसके माध्यम से कि पूरे के पूरे समाज के अंदर जागरूकता पैदा की जा सके और इस प्रकार की जो भी आपदाएं आती हैं उनसे ठीक तरीके से निपटा जा सके। क्योंकि मैं समझता हूं कि एक एक जो मानव मूल्य है और मेहनत से परिश्रम से कमाई गई एक एक कोई भी सुविधा है, कोई भी संसाधन है, अगर उसका असामयिक क्षरण होता है, अगर वह नष्ट होती है तो ये पूरी की पूरी मानव सभ्यता का, मानव समाज का नुकसान है और उस नुकसान को जितनी जिम्मेदारी के साथ, जितनी गंभीरता के साथ कम किया जा सकता है उतना ही अच्छा है। इस प्रकार के जो कार्यक्रम हैं उनमें मुझे लगता है NSS, NCC और तमाम तरह के जो NGO होते हैं उन सबको भी जोड़ने की आवश्यकता है और तमाम विश्वविद्यालयों में और तमाम स्कूलों में और जितने भी शिक्षण संस्थान हो सकते हैं उन सब में भी NIDM को अपनी एक छोटी सेल बनानी चाहिए जिससे कि लगातार इस तरह के ट्रेनिंग कैंप भी आयोजित किए जा सकें और कहीं ना कहीं एक जागरूकता अभियान भी चलाए जा सकें। और डॉक्टर श्वेता यादव ने और राजू थापा जी ने बड़ी ठीक बात कही कि इस प्रकार के जो आयोजन होते हैं, इस प्रकार के जो कैंप और प्रोग्राम होते हैं वो वर्नाक्युलर लैंग्वेज जिन्हें हम भारतीय भाषाएं कहते हैं उनमें भी होने चाहिए। क्योंकि हमारे जो देश की जनसंख्या है अंग्रेजी 4, 5, 10% लोग भी ठीक से समझ और बोल नहीं पाते हैं। तो ये जो संदेश है उन लोगों तक भी पहुंचाया जाना जरूरी है। अभी जो डेटा में अभी देख रहा था आप लोगों के इस कार्यक्रम के दौरान ही कि जो अंग्रेजी बोलने वाले लोग हैं, यानी समाज का जो एलिट तबका है, उसके यहाँ उसमें ये जो कैजुअलिटी है उनका परसेंटेज काफी कम है। लेकिन जो गरीब तबका है, जो भारतीय भाषाएं बोलता है और वर्नाकुलर लैंग्वेजेस बोलता है, स्थानीय भाषाओं में संवाद करता है और बहुत इंटीरियर दूर दराज गांव देहात में रहता है, उनके यहाँ कैजुअलिटी रेट काफी ज्यादा है। उसके बहुत सारे कारण हो सकते हैं, उनका भी हम अध्ययन कर सकते हैं और निश्चित रूप से आप लोगों ने अध्ययन किया होगा। तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि इस प्रकार के कार्यक्रम और ट्रेनिंग कैंप बिल्कुल दूर दराज के इलाकों में भी करने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि वो जो जिंदगियां हैं वह सब भी हमारे लिए उतने ही महत्वपूर्ण हैं। एक विषय और इधर डेटा में देख रहा था कि चीन और अमेरिका के बाद जो भारत है वो तीसरे नंबर पर है जो इस प्रकार के डिजास्टर प्रोन एरियाज हैं उनमें से। तो उसमें एक तो निश्चित रूप से जनसंख्या हमारा एक बड़ा कारण हो सकती है, क्योंकि चीन की भी जनसंख्या बहुत ज्यादा है हमारे पड़ोस में और भारत की भी जनसंख्या बहुत ज्यादा है। उसके अलावा हमारी ज्योग्राफिकल जो लोकेशन है कि हम तीन तरफ से समुद्र से घिरे हुए हैं और एक तरफ से हिमालय की गोद में बैठे हुए हैं, हिमालय की तलहटी में हैं, तो वह भी कारण होगा। लेकिन हमें एक इस तरह की स्टडी भी करनी चाहिए, या मुझे जानकारी नहीं है की है क्या, कि जितनी हमारी जनसंख्या है और जितनी दुर्घटना होती है और जो जितनी कैजुअलिटी होती है उन सब में आपस में क्या रेशियो है। क्योंकि जैसे नेपाल जैसे देश हैं या मैक्सिको जैसे देश हैं, उनमें कितनी दुर्घटनाएं होती हैं और फिर उसमें कितनी कैजुअलिटी होती है, कितना जन धन की क्षति होती है। तो आनुपातिक रूप से भारत और चीन और यूएस जैसे कहाँ स्टैंड करते हैं, एक स्टडी इस तरह की भी होनी चाहिए। और एक जो ये दुर्घटनाएं लगातार बढ़ती जा रही है, हालांकि हमने इनको रोकने के लिए या इनके बाद होने वाली जनधन की क्षति है उसको कम करने के लिए बहुत ज्यादा तरक्की की है, लेकिन इन दुर्घटनाओं के बढ़ने के पीछे जो मैं कारण देख पाता हूँ वो कहीं ना कहीं हमारी जो भूख है, हमारी जो इच्छाएं हैं वो बढ़ती जा रही हैं, वो भी है। और उसने क्या किया है कि बहुत बड़े पैमाने पर पर्यावरण असंतुलन पैदा किया है। पर्यावरण असंतुलन पैदा हो जाने से ही इतनी सारी दुर्घटनाएं बढ़ती जा रही हैं। और जब तक हम अपनी इच्छाओं को सीमित नहीं करेंगे, हमारी जो उपभोग की प्रवृत्ति है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा चीजों को एक तरह से संचय करने की, उनको अपने कब्जे में लेने की जो प्रवृत्ति है और उनका उपभोग करने की प्रवृत्ति है, उसको जब तक हम नियंत्रित नहीं करेंगे तब तक हम आपदा प्रबंधन के क्षेत्र में चाहे जितनी तरक्की कर लें, लेकिन फिर भी इस प्रकार की दुर्घटनाएं और इससे भी बड़ी बड़ी दुर्घटनाओं की पुनरावृत्ति होती रहेगी, ऐसा मुझे लगता है। तो कहीं ना कहीं एक जो समाज की जो जीवन को लेके दृष्टि बदल रही है और उसमें उपभोक्तावाद और उपयोगवाद बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ रहा है, उसके बरक्स हमें कहीं ना कहीं थोड़ा सा आध्यात्मिक जीवन दृष्टि, जो गांधी जी, पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय, गौतम बुद्ध, जिस प्रकार के हमारे बहुत सारे पुराने चिंतक और विचारक रहे, उन्होंने भी कहा है, उसको भी हमें थोड़ा सा सोचने समझने की आवश्यकता है। हमारा जो पूरा का पूरा प्राचीन वैदिक साहित्य पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें प्रकृति के साथ जो मनुष्य है, मानव समाज है, उसका एक संतान जैसा संबंध रहा है। जैसे एक वेदों से एक पंक्ति मुझे अभी आती है, माता भूमि पुत्रो हम पृथिव्या। तो जो पृथ्वी है, धरती है, वो हमारी माता के समान है और हम उसके पुत्र हैं, हम उसकी संतति है, संतान है। जब हमारे अंदर ये भाव पैदा होगा और हम धरती के साथ, पेड़ों के साथ, पशुओं के साथ, नदियों के साथ, पहाड़ों के साथ एक आंतरिक, एक अंतरंग और एक आत्मीय संबंध स्थापित करेंगे, तो मुझे लगता है कि इस प्रकार की जो दुर्घटनाएं वो थोड़ी कम होंगी। और ये जो अभी सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स भी हैं हमारे सामने, एसडीजी गोल्स, लगातार उन पर चर्चा होती रहती है। और बड़े हैरत की और विडंबनापूर्ण बात यह है कि जो विकसित देश हैं वो सबसे ज्यादा इस तरह के गोल्स की बात करते हैं और पर्यावरण असंतुलन पैदा करने में भी उनका सबसे बड़ा योगदान है। तो ये बड़ी विडंबनापूर्ण स्थिति है। तो हमें जो भी हम विकास कर रहे हैं उसमें जो सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का जो मॉडल है उसे अपनी आंखों के सामने रखना चाहिए, अपनी दृष्टि के सामने रखना चाहिए। चाहे स्मार्ट सिटी प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, चाहे बुलेट ट्रेन प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, चाहे हम बड़े बड़े डैम्स बना रहे हैं, चाहे बड़े लंबे चौड़े फ्लाईओवर्स बना रहे हैं, ये सब बनाते वक्त हमें ये जरूर ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि विकास के साथ साथ हमें सतत विकास की जो अवधारणाएं उसको अपनी दृष्टि से ओझल नहीं होने देना है, नहीं तो ये जो विकास है वो विनाशकारी होता चला जाता है। और हम जो भी विकास की योजनाएं बनाएं उनको लेकर के आईएसओ की तरफ से बहुत सारे मानक हैं, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मानक हैं, उन सब का भी अनुपालन सुनिश्चित होना चाहिए। जो भी हम इमारतें बनाएं, जो भी बांध बनाएं, जो भी फ्लाईओवर्स बनाएं, या जिस प्रकार का भी कहीं भी निर्माण कार्य करें, जो भी योजनाएं, विकास योजनाएं बनाएं, उनमें वो जो आईएसओ के मानक हैं जो बहुत अध्ययन के बाद बनाए जाते हैं, उनका अनुपालन भी सुनिश्चित किया जाना चाहिए। एक और जो महत्वपूर्ण बात है कि भारत में जो बहुत सारी एजेंसीज होती हैं, सरकारी एजेंसीज खासतौर पर, उनमें आपस में एक कोऑर्डिनेट
Sir, I think there is some problem in the connection.
हेलो
जी
Yes.
जी sir, now we can hear you.
हाँ, तो हमारे यहाँ तमाम जो सरकारी एजेंसीज होती हैं, मैं कह रहा था,
Sir, you
उनमें
need to
कोऑर्डिनेट
rotate your screen. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Better.
तो जो तमाम सरकारी एजेंसीज हैं उनके अंदर जिसका अभाव अभी कई बार दिखता है, तो एक कंसोलिडेटेड, कोऑर्डिनेटेड और कोलैबोरेटिव एफर्ट करने से मुझे लगता है कि इस प्रकार की दुर्घटनाएं बहुत कम हो जाएंगी। और जो NIDM है वो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा है, और जैसे कि हमारे मौसम विज्ञान विभाग ने बड़ी तरक्की की है, उसके पास बड़े लेटेस्ट उपकरण हैं, सूचना तकनीक का भी वो बहुत बेहतर उपयोग कर रहे हैं, उसी प्रकार से NIDM भी उनके साथ कोऑर्डिनेट करते हुए, निश्चित रूप से ऐसा कोऑर्डिनेशन होगा भी, तो जो उनका काम है उसको और अच्छा और फलदायी और ज्यादा इफेक्टिव बना सकता है। एक बात और मैं बस आखिर में रेखांकित करना चाहूंगा या आपका ध्यान दिलाना चाहूंगा कि हमारा जो कन्वेंशनल नॉलेज सिस्टम है, जो परंपरागत हमारा ज्ञान विज्ञान है, आप देखेंगे कि हमारे जो वो पुराने समय में पशु पक्षियों के जो तमाम संकेत होते थे, उनके माध्यम से पता चल जाता था कि इस बार अकाल होगा या ज्यादा बारिश होगी या कोई भूकंप आने वाला है। इसी प्रकार के जो हमारी कन्वेंशनल नॉलेज सिस्टम है, जो सगुन होते हैं और इस प्रकार की चीजें हैं, मैं ऐसा नहीं कहता कि विज्ञान को हमें पूरी तरह से डिस्कार्ड कर देना चाहिए या उसकी अनदेखी करनी चाहिए। विज्ञान को और अध्यात्म को और अपनी आधुनिकतम रिसर्च है और जो हमारा कन्वेंशनल नॉलेज सिस्टम है, उनको भी आपस में कहीं ना कहीं जोड़ने की आवश्यकता है। अगर हम उसको जोड़ करके आगे बढ़ते हैं और एक आपस में समन्वय बना करके एक समन्वित दृष्टि के साथ आगे बढ़ते हैं, समावेशी दृष्टि के साथ आगे बढ़ते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है कि जो NIDM जैसी संस्थाएं और जम्मू केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय का पर्यावरण विभाग है, उनका जो प्रभाव है और उनका जो प्रयास है वो ज्यादा सार्थक होगा। और जम्मू कश्मीर अपने आप में हिमालय की तलहटी में है, हिमालय की गोद में है, तो ये तो खुद डिजास्टर प्रोन एरिया है कई दृष्टियों से। तो यहाँ पर इस प्रकार के जागरूकता अभियान या फिर ऐसे ट्रेनिंग जो कैंप हैं, शिविर हैं, उनका आयोजन बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण है। और मैं समझता हूँ कि जो इंटीरियर गांव देहात हैं अंदर जाकर के, उनमें भी इस प्रकार के आयोजन होने चाहिए। इस आयोजन के लिए और इस आयोजन में अपनी बात रखने के लिए, मुझे अवसर देने के लिए मैं आप सबका, डॉक्टर श्वेता जी का और मंडल जी का, आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद महोदय, बहुत ही सरल लैंग्वेज में एवं बहुत कुछ संवाद आपने सभी को दिया है, जिसके लिए हम लोग आभार हूँ। आपने बहुत कुछ बताया, जो हम लोग जो विकास कर रहे हैं उसको विनाश का कारण ना बने, अतएव उसको सतत सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट होना चाहिए। प्लस आपने जो बताया मनीषियों ने, जो महात्मा बुद्ध ने और भी बहुत बहुत मनीषी ने जो कुछ बात बता के किया, उसको भी हम लोग को ये जो डिजास्टर होता है उस टाइम में भी उन लोगों को जो कहा गया बात को भी हम लोग को सुनना चाहिए, उसमें भी हम लोग को बहुत कुछ रिलीफ मिल सकते। और हम लोग को सतत विकास के लिए उसको अनुपालन करना अति आवश्यक है। ये बहुत अच्छी बात आपने रखा है, बहुत कुछ मैसेज आपने दिया है। और ये जो लोकल लैंग्वेज में जो लैंग्वेज में हम लोग को उन्हीं के साथ मिलजुल कर राहत रिलीफ तो काम करता ही हूँ, लेकिन ये जो अर्ली वार्निंग का इसका मैसेज ये सब का काम देना जरूरी है। ये सब बहुत ही आप अच्छा बात आपने रखा है, इसके लिए हम लोग आभार हूँ सर महोदय आपका योगदान के लिए। नमस्कार।
धन्यवाद सर। हमारे प्रोग्राम में जो एक कमी थी वर्नाकुलर लैंग्वेजेस की, वो भी आपने पूरी कर दी। तो अब हमने इसे हाइब्रिड बना दिया। आई थिंक जो भी मैसेजेस हैं वो बोथ लैंग्वेजेस में वी हैव कन्वेड। सो थैंक यू सो मच सर फॉर योर एड्रेस।
Now we are coming to the end of the seminar of this training program. Now that vote of thanks is to be proposed. Now I will take the responsibility for that. So on that day, Dr. Shata Madam, she has performed, and today, alternate way, I have to perform the vote of thanks for overall 3 days curriculum. Now, सॉरी महोदय, हम लोग को इस फोरम में इंग्लिश में बात करना है अल्टीमेट स्टेज पे, क्योंकि ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड, इवन नॉट ओनली इंडिया, आवर वर्ल्ड इज आल्सो पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन दिस सेमिनार। तो इसलिए सरल तरीके से हम बताएंगे दैट ये जो सेमिनार हम लोग ने परफॉर्म किया 3 days ऑनलाइन ट्रेनिंग ऑन डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्शन इन कोलैबोरेशन विथ द सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ जम्मू, and we have successfully completed, and for that credit goes to our both the patrons, that is our executive director of NIDM, IPS, Mr. Taj Hussain Sahab. So he's behind that. To as per government's mandatory, he's asking and he's monitoring all those programs. Say, and we are thankful to you, sir, and definitely we will perform in time. And also, we are very much thankful to Professor Sanjeev Jain ji. So, his Vice Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor, he has given his interest to carry out this type of training program at his university. Of course, at the last moment, he could not join, but he has observed us prior to the training program, what is going on and what will be the curricula. He has observed and he has given the motivation to us also. So for that, a great thanks to you, sir. Next is all the resource person, starting from, say, our Praveen Kumarji from NRSC to all those Himanshu Kumar Sahab. I have special thanks to him. Since last 3 days, he is 3 days he is with us. He is sharing his time to time, his views, and of course, in his first day, he has given a worthy lecture on seismic, especially the microgeneration in Delhi and surrounding, and also related things on seismic he has given. So special thanks to him, and also say this Sunil Dhar Sahab was there. So Raju and Madam Shata was there, Professor Bhav was there. So a credit goes to them also. They have shared their message to widely all over India and abroad also. So I put my heartfelt thanks to all those speakers. And lastly, our Professor Russell Singh Sahab, हिंदी में जिन्होंने बहुत सरल तरीके से बताया, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बात उन्होंने कही, उसके लिए स्पेशल थैंक्स टू यू महोदय, आपके लिए स्पेशल थैंक्स देना चाहता हूँ. And our participants, they are with us. They are in this time. They are very, very interacted with the subject, with the theme, and appropriate questions are raised. So, I, on behalf of NIDM and on behalf of Central University of Gujarat, we put our heartiest thanks.
The Central University of Jammu.
Jammu, sorry, Central, because all the Central
University, so you are
Central University of Jammu. So on behalf of Central University of Jammu, a heartiest thanks to all the participants for their encouragement, for their participants, and activeness towards grasping in this last 3 days program. So I put my heartiest thanks to them, and not least our IT teams are there, from both the organizations, and also Konika ji is there. So she is supporting last 3 days for moderation, and also Dr. Seta, she has not only in these 3 days, before that, before at least a fortnight, 2 weeks back, she has given the support how to make the program smoothly and wisely and successfully, and we are success. A great thanks to you. So this is the end of the program. If anything you would like to say, and Dr. Mandal is welcome. So please come forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That is true, obviously. But
आप बहुत अच्छा सर 3 दिन से कंटिन्यूअस you are just saying about the scientific matter, and Dr. Seta madam उसको एंकरिंग बहुत अच्छा है सर क्या बोलेंगे ये हम अगर मार्क देना है तो 10/10 मार्क्स उनका पर जाना चाहिए सर.
Correct. So full time she is engaged in these 3 days and given the full support on behalf of his university and on behalf of herself.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, on behalf of Central University of Jammu also, I want to thank both the patterns, course chairs, of course, convener, Dr. Haldarji, who is coordinating everything and who initiated actually this for this collaboration. This is the very important activity which has taken place under the aegis of Research and Development Council of Central University of Jammu. So I'm very thankful to you, sir, for coordinating everything so well. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Himanshu also. He is not only the speaker, he has become organizer partially. He is there, and sir, it was very motivating that you are all the time there. And it is where I can understand it is very, difficult to give time, because time is the most important resource all of us have. So thank you so much, Dr. Himanshu. I once again thank all the speakers, all the participants, especially the participants, our scholars, students from both sides, and participants from all over the India, to make this program a great success. I'm very thankful to the Faculty of Environmental Sciences, Dr. Richa Kothari. First of all, our head of the department, Professor Sunil Dhar, Dr. Richa Kothari, Coordinator EVS, Dr. Anita Singh, Dr. Dinesh for their support and cooperation. Thank you once again, sir. And I propose that next time we should have this in offline mode. And with this, I invite all of you to Central University of Jammu. We should definitely have this in the auditorium of Central University of Jammu. It was a very good, nice experience to work with you. Thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you. And I want to say about the certificates. So by tomorrow morning, or in the evening, it will be uploaded, and you'll get, as per the same procedure like earlier, the certificates will be posted, and you can get online also. Thank you. Next, we'll see in the next month, first week or second week. Not first week, because that due to Dasara. After the second week, we'll be having training as well as this webinar. There will be 3 curriculum. I'll be in support with all of you. Will be performed by me. Thank you. Now we'll make leave.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Konika.
Namaskar.
Thank you, ma'am.